Hello and welcome once again. We are doing the characterization in R.K. Narayan's The Guide, and we have already done the characters of Raju and Rosie. And now today we'll do we'll do the character and role of Marco. So as you know, Marco is Rosie's husband and he is an archaeologist and he is doing research on the works of the caves. So he comes to Malgudi to do his research work. But he is a very odd character, we know. Marco, he is one of those densely enigmatic characters who frequently appear in Narayan's novels and are assigned minor roles. They are very odd and eccentric characters, like knots in wood, who keep away from the mainstream of human life. Marco comes to Malgudi with his wife Rosie and with his water diviner's instinct. Raju at once realizes that he is his permanent customer. He is dressed like a spaceman. We don't know his real name, but Raju calls him Marco, for he looks like an eternal tourist, like Marco Polo. Actually, Raju feels that he's like Marco Polo. And Marco is a devoted archaeologist. Marco and Rosie are not able to pull on together, for in his zeal for and devotion to his archaeological studies, he takes no interest in his young and fascinating wife. Raju thinks of Marco in relation to Rosie as a monkey's picking up a rose garland. जैसे अपने यहाँ वो कहावत है ना कि बंदर के हाथ में नारियल लग जाना. Something like that. He is unable to understand Marco's obsessive interest in ancient relics and says, like dead and decaying things seem to loosen his tongue and fire his imagination rather than things that lived and moved and swung their limbs. He is bored with Marco's ruin collecting activities. Like Raju is interested in human beings, live human beings, whereas Marco is interested in dead things, dead and decaying things. He's an archaeologist. He's bored with Marco, and Rosie too doesn't like to see the cold old stone walls, and she finds that her wealthy husband is more interested in books, papers, painting, and old art than in being a real live husband. Now, actually, there is no compatibility in the nature of Rosie and Marco. They are two different opposites. Like Rosie likes everything live and bright, whereas Marco likes things which are old and decayed. So when Marco decides to stay on to explore the cave paintings more fully, Raju takes charge of Rosie and soon becomes her ardent lover. Analyzing the causes of Marco's failure with Rosie, Raju says, Marco was just unpractical, an absolutely helpless man. All that he could do was to copy ancient things and write about them. Perhaps he married out of a desire to have someone to take care of his practical life, but unfortunately, his choice was wrong because the girl herself was a dreamer, if ever there was one. Because Rosie was not that kind of a woman who could take care of him and in his interests. And his neglect of Rosie. Now, Marco is the husband of Rosie, but he neglected Rosie. She would have greatly benefited by a husband who could care for her career, but it was not so. And Raju Rosie relationship becomes credible and acceptable only because of neglect. Rosie suffers at the hands of her husband, and the husband, who is interested in sculptured figures on the walls and stones in caves, but not in his wife, who, as a dancer, was the living embodiment of those images. She had intellectual interests too. She looked for ideas in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and remarked to her husband enthusiastically, I have so many ideas I like to try just as you are trying to. Now, Rosie is educated, she's an MA in economics, and she has intellectual interests. So, when she tries to share her interest with the husband, Marco, he is not interested in him. He would just brush it aside and say, I doubt if you can. It is more difficult than you imagine. So he never encourages her, he always snaps her down. And yet, this was the man who insisted on marrying a graduate wife. But Raju, the ignoramus, wished he could keep pace with her idiom and learn. Now, Raju liked Rosie and he appreciated her. He appreciated her dance, he also appreciated her intellectual capacity and capability. So, and he wished that he could keep pace with her. He claimed when she indicated the lotus with her fingers, I could almost hear the ripple of water around it. While to Marco, it was all a monkey trick. Like Marco was not interested in dance and he could not appreciate the grace and in the action and the fluidity of Rosie's movements. What bothered Marco was not the present realization of their musical notation, but how there could be such a wide period difference since he knew it to be the 5th century. And so, what interested her seemed to irritate him. Now, they are opposite characters. What interested Rosie, Marco did not like, and what interested Marco, Rosie did not like and appreciate. And so, it is that made her confess to Raju, I would have preferred any kind of a mother in law if it had meant one real live husband. Now, she is so desperate and she's so frustrated with her husband, then she said that I want a real husband, not a person who is interested in dead things. Now, Marco's eccentricity, his eccentricity. Marco is an eccentric and his eccentricity has been brought out in various ways. Eccentric होता है थोड़ा what to say, eccentric means that a person with an unusual or odd personality. The person who deviates from regularity, that is, he has an anomalous or irregular nature. So, Marco was one of the eccentric persons. For example, he would not part with an anna without a voucher, whereas if you give him a slip of paper, you could probably get him to write off his entire fortune. That is, Raju knew his nature very well. So he was stern, self centered, and self righteous. He thinks he has acquired his wife, body and soul, and thinks his rights over his property are unlimited. Now, actually, he treated Rosie not as a person but as a property. And dancing is to him, as to many orthodox men and women of the old school, another name for prostitution. Once she talks about this, he thinks she has gone back on the condition on which he had entered into his contract of marriage, and he felt free to repudiate her. Now, actually, Rosie was the daughter of a dance girl, the one who dances in temples. And while at the marriage marriage, one of the marriage conditions of Marco was that Rosie will not dance. And when Rosie talks about dancing, he does not like it. And his harshness to Rosie. And now, when Rosie's confession of her infidelity, it comes to him as a shock. He cannot understand that how a wife can be unfaithful to a husband even once and can still be in love with him. To Rosie's passionate appeal, Rosie says, I want to be with you. I want you to forget everything. I want you to forgive me. He replies, Yes, I'm trying to forget. Even the earlier fact that I ever took a wife. So he says that he's so stern and so strict. He says, No, I'm also thinking that why did I take you as a wife? And I want to go out from here too, but I want to complete my work, and I am here for that. You are free to go and do what you please. So he really says that you are free to do whatever you want to. I have nothing to do with you. So Marco's asking the porter to remove Rosie's bags from his compartment, as he has bought no ticket for her and has nothing to do with her. Now when he returns, he does not think about Rosie and he buys only one ticket. And when Rosie follows him and she keeps her luggage in the compartment, Marco asks the porter to take off the luggage. So he has nothing to do with her. Though shockingly inhuman, it is of a piece with the man, that is, he is that kind of person. He is very insensitive also. So completely consistent with this man of rectitude, in his reference to Raju, in his book he had written a book called Mempi Cave Pictures. This author is obliged to acknowledge his debt to Shri Raju of Malgudi railway station for his help. So he is a person who also gives due importance to the help which Raju did to him. But he is very harsh with Rosie. Now, he is like an ominous, overhanging presence. Marco leaves for Madras, now Chennai, but even though he is not physically there, he seems to be an ominous, overhanging presence. उसका प्रेजेंस ऐसा है जैसे कि कहीं मंडराता है, कुछ जैसे काला साया सा सबके ऊपर मंडरा रहा हो on the life of Rosie and Raju. Rosie never forgets him and cuts his picture from the Illustrated Weekly. Illustrated Weekly is a magazine in which the article of his is published, and has it framed and keeps it on her table, for after all, he is my husband. She is grateful to him for he let her go, while any other man would have throttled his wife under the circumstances. Now, Rosie also feels grateful that he did not kill her or murder her for that infidelity. Such sentiments, expressed frequently, induce in Raju a feeling of insecurity. Now, Raju feels very jealous and also insecure that time and again Rosie used to refer to her husband that whatever it is, whatever he did to me, but at least after all, he was my husband. And secondly, that he had some sort of humanity, that he did not murder Rosie for the infidelity which he committed. So Raju is afraid that she would desert him and go back to her husband. So first he hides from her the book which was written by Marco, and then secondly forges her signatures on the vouchers so that he may get the ornaments without her being aware of her husband's generosity. Whether the result of a clever trick on the part of Marco or not, the forgery lands Raju in jail. In this way, he has his revenge on the seducer of his wife. That is Marco. In the end, he finally overcomes Raju and he wins over Raju, that he wanted to put him in jail and he wanted to take revenge. वो बदला लेना चाहता था. So he took revenge finally from Raju by sending him to jail. So we know that Uh, Marco, though he has his own ways that you can't even call him a very bad man or a good man, but the only thing we can call him a very incompatible partner of Rosie. So, this is all for now. I hope you have understood the character of Marco. And in the next session, I'll take some of the long questions based on this novel. Thank you.